Is to put under other item 4, the Air Force requesting permission to discharge the GAC plant ahead of an agreement. Right, are there any other agenda additions or changes? Is everyone okay with adding these two? Okay, I need a motion to set the agenda.
So moved.
I'll make a move that we adopt the agenda with the 2 additions.
All right, is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Byer, support by Mr. Gajewski. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the agenda's set. Next is the public comment period. There is a 4-minute time limit. For this first public comment period, there is a card required to be filled out and submitted to the superintendent. The second comment period does not require this. And when you come up to the podium, please introduce yourself. Do we have any cards?
I have one. Arnie LaRich, the requirement for the township PEG funding of video broadcasting of the RAB meeting, 8/30/18.
Good evening. Arnie LaRich, co-chair of the community side of the Restoration Advisory Board. Last early spring, the township requested that stated that they would pay for 2 of the RAB meetings for the video broadcasting, and we appreciate that happening. It has been viewed by over 200 times on the one meeting and 150 or 60 by this last June meeting. It's also been used, I know, by congressional staff and by a lot of citizens outside of the area who are not available to go to the meeting. Because only 2 were committed to by the township to pay for that, I was strongly advised that we look for other funding. So I went back to the Air Force and asked them in writing to give me why the grant that they manage, it's called a TAPP, a Technical Assistance Public Participation Grant, could not pay for these. They sent me some information in writing where grant writing, which indicated that that grant was mostly for technical assistance that the RAB might need to review a report that they had produced, and even to the point of hiring a consultant to help the RAB review that kind of a report. So I started in June to talk to other sources, and this morning I received a tentative that they're not able to. And the source that I've gone to, I've shared with Aaron today, is the Saginaw Chippewa Tribal Nation. And they're at the end of the fiscal year, and they're not able to fund anything more this fiscal year, but they want to get a formal application from us, and they will bring it to their council leadership the end of September and give us an answer on potential participation in paying some portion or all of the RAB. So it's an unknown right now, but I sent that information to Aaron so that we could talk this evening about the potential of the township paying at least for the next one, and he asked about what the cost might be for the end of the calendar year. So I shared that quote estimate that the EROC has given me that I had sent to the tribe over a month and a half ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards?
Good.
All right, then we move on to consent agenda. We have the approval of minutes for August 10th for the work session. Second work session of August 10th again. The regular meeting minutes of August 13th and closed session meeting minutes of August 13th. Any comments on those? Then we have for payment of bills for $130,734.89. Any comments regarding item 1 under finance? And then there's payment of bills for the DDA, which the agenda showed $1,011.52, which is actually supposed to be $544.02 in dealing with the Elmers and Russo engineering bills. Any comments regarding that?
Yeah, I'm confused. Which is it, 2011? Or,
It's $544.02.
so that's a incorrect figure.
Correct.
Okay.
And as far as the DDA bills go, there will be, they will be brought up to the DDA board at tomorrow's meeting for their approval. Any comments? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda as written with the correction of the payment bills for the DDA.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Gieske, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes. Motion is passed. Next, subcommittee reports and project updates. First one I have is for the water main Phase 1 update. So installation of the mains is complete for Van Etten Dam Road, Forest Drive, and Rose Lane. The final inspection is scheduled for September 12th. Some discrepancies have already been identified and will hopefully be fixed before the final inspection. For number 2, I have for the upcoming RAB meeting, Mr. Cummings.
Yes, so the upcoming RAB meeting is now going to be this Thursday, August 30th. It will begin for the tour of the new GAC plant at 4 p.m., starting here at the library, with the meeting following at 5:30 to 7:30 here at the library.
Okay. There's also a DDA joint meeting, between the DDA and the Township, a special meeting that's being held tomorrow at 11 a.m. here in the library. Does anybody have anything else for subcommittee reports and project updates?
Well, just one item on the bike path, the IET committee, and we're going to discuss this a little further so I can get more detail if you like. But the IET committee voted on approving Spicer as the engineering company to represent on the RFP that we had approved to be a part of. So, and we have
Anything?
something further on the agenda in terms of that contract, so we can talk more about that then.
Anything else? All right, then under reports, number 1 is the purchase of a Ferris mower.
All right, so DPW is requesting Township Board approval to purchase the mower budgeted in the capital improvement plan for 2018. Your packet contains quotes obtained by DPW for this mower, and the 2018 CIP budget amount was $14,000. So both of the, all of the quotes are well under the $14,000 for 2018, and based on the budget discussion, or I'm sorry, based on the work session last Friday, the trustees mentioned that it would be preferable to go with the Kawasaki engine over the Briggs.
Any comments? Is there a motion?
I would move to approve the purchase of the Ferris mower from Lincoln Outdoor for $11,700.
Support.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
No, I'm not, I know I wasn't there Friday, but you want $700 more for a Kawasaki engine than a Briggs & Stratton. Do I have that right? No.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion's passed. Next, Iosco County Road Commission payments.
All right, so the Iosco County Road Commission is requesting reimbursement for the township portion of the 2018 road improvement. And so your packet contains the 4 bills submitted by the Road Commission totaling the $98,775.03, as well as the supporting documentation for the prior approval. And what you'll also find in there is the BSNA report showing the special assessment revenue associated with, it was $18,144.09, receipted to Fund 203 to help offset the cost of the road improvements for 2018.
Any comments?
am I correct? Have these already been approved? This is just coming back, just reaffirming after we've gotten the final.
Yes, that we're, this is now our portion. These are the totals, and I tried to go back and provide all the previous support for all these different amounts for the 4 different projects on there. Wanted to be able to show you that we are within the $100,000 of appropriations in 203.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but a portion of this Colbarth Road funds were collected by the residents and paid for the township. This is the total amount of the bill.
Correct.
So does that money that was collected go back into the road fund?
It's receipted to the road fund. What I'm showing you is we're still within the $100,000 of appropriation, so we have to pay this bill, the $98,775.03.
Right.
We're within that $100,000 of appropriation, but yes, the money that was collected gets receipted as revenue back into Fund 203.
Okay. So then with the 1,050 added on, it wouldn't take that balance all the way down to the 99,825.
We have $74.97 left within that $100,000 of appropriation.
But that money that was collected should go into there, correct?
It is receipted into Fund 203.
It already was.
It already was. That's what I'm showing you in the BSNA report.
Oh, that's part of the 100,000?
So, no, that's receipted as revenue. We have to spend the $98,000. We're cutting a check
Right.
to the Iosco County Road Commission for that $98,775.03. We have already collected. We did that back in April.
Right.
Is when we got the special assessment together before we performed the road improvements.
Right. Okay.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of the 4 invoices from Iosco County Road Commission in the total amount of $98,775.03.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Gieske. Roll call?
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Weed,
Yes, motion is passed. Next, police department posting for the community service and code compliance and detective sergeant positions.
All right, so the police department is requesting the township board approval to post both the community service / code compliance and detective sergeant positions. Your packet contains a proposed ballot language and the 2018 August primary election results. So the testing and purchase of textbooks associated with the detective sergeant position will be below the $2,000 threshold for township board approval. And based on the results of the 2018 August primary election, the township board will also be presented next meeting, the 10th, with resolutions creating two new funds to update the township's chart of accounts for the approved police millages.
Any comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we post the community service, code compliance, and detective sergeant positions.
Support.
Motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, appointment to the LDFA board.
All right, the township board is requested to consider Greg Schultz for appointment to the LDFA board. And your packet contains a letter from Mr. Schultz to the supervisor Weed dated August 12, 2018.
Any comments?
Yeah, question, and it doesn't matter, whatever your answer is, it really doesn't matter, but I'm just curious, did you recruit Mr. Schultz, or did he just know the position was open and submitted a letter? Which came first?
He requested to be on another board, but I said I could use him more on the LDFA than the other board. He
Okay.
said that would be great. He would love to do it.
Good. Okay, thanks. I guess a follow-up. When I was supervisor, and there were openings, whatever board, many board members would come up with possible candidates, and some of them, their suggestions resulted in members of this board sitting here tonight. And that's the way we kind of worked it. Is that still your policy, that anybody on the board can come up with suggestions for?
I'll take suggestions from anybody.
Good deal.
Yep,
Okay.
love to have them.
Thank you. Because I know it's sometimes searching for candidates is not fun.
Most frequent comment I get is that they're too busy.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what I want, are people who are too busy, because they get things done. Any other comments? Then I make a motion to consider appointing Greg Schultz to the LDFA board with an expiration of August 1st, 2022.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Weed, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion is passed. All right, on to resolutions and ordinances. We have resolution for truth and taxation.
All right. So this is a two-part piece of legislation. This resolution 2018-19 will provide that there is a public hearing on the next board meeting, which is on the 10th of September. And there will be a public hearing with the assessor here to explain the difference between the total amount of the operating millage to maximize the millage amount. So there is a difference if we have the hearing or we don't have the hearing, and that is detailed in your packet. She also includes the supporting documentation that we have an increase in the maximum millage amount, and that is why we need to be able to have a public hearing to explain that.
And on Friday, we discussed a typo in this sheet here that's, we don't have a correction to today at the meeting.
Correct.
So which one is the operating millage without hearing versus the one with hearing?
So the without the hearing is the one on top, the lower amount, the 1,309,000 versus the operating millage with the hearing, which is 1,320,000.
Thank you.
And so the resolution 2018-19 is resolution to approve a public hearing at our next meeting. And then would I assume that the resolution that would be made at that meeting will be 2018-20?
Correct.
Okay. Make sure we keep our numbering straight here.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2018-19.
Support?
Motion by Mr. Byer, support from Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, resolution for Oscoda Township's law enforcement towing procedure.
Right. So this is part of the ongoing settlement with Randy's Towing. And what you'll find in here is the solidification of what the township is already doing as far as following the Oscoda County towing procedure. And we are solidifying a current practice that we follow the Oscoda County towing policy, and that was updated in 2007 with Sheriff McGregor and the township attorney, and it states the rotational call. It also gives the motorist in the accident in need of a tow the ability to contact their preferred towing company. So that is all detailed in this resolution.
Any comments?
I don't know how important it is, but you said Sheriff McGregor in 2007?
17.
17, thank you. Okay. I don't think he was elected, I think, in 08, so, but my mistake.
Yes, this was recently updated by the county.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution number 2018-21.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Cummings, support by Mr. Gajewski. Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion is passed. Next, resolution for Oscoda Township Spicer Group contract.
All right, so we are combining forces with Plainfield Township, Osable Township, as well as Oscoda Township to have one engineer perform the bike path consulting services. And what you will see in here is that the agreement is not to exceed the $30,000, which is the amount of the grant. Plainfield Township also got $30,000, and I believe Osable got $25,000. So combining that into one contract where Plainfield Township already passed their resolution, as well as Oscoda Township. We are maximizing our purchasing efforts by contracting with one company to do all of the engineering for this project.
Any comments?
So this says for phase B, is that for phase 2? Is that,
It's for, under the numbered phases, that's phases 5, 6, and 7, which
Okay.
covers from Old Orchard Park, actually includes 2 sections, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that
Okay.
includes from the Old Orchard Park to Plainfield Township, and also the section that runs up US 23 in Oscoda Township.
okay.
So
Okay.
this is near the remainder of the bike path in Iosco County. And this is developmental grants,
Okay, and this grant,
With the exception of Baldwin Township.
except for Baldwin, that's the only link that,
okay. And this grant covers planning, similar to the previous $30,000 grants we've
Correct,
done?
engineering
Okay.
design.
Engineer,
yep.
okay. And I don't know if anyone recalls, we committed, I remember discussing this concept of banding together and to reduce costs, which makes sense. Did we ever approve it, or was that just discussion?
Yes, we approved joining that all together. We did a resolution for that.
Okay,
Now we're going through the steps of the actual process of getting that design engineering completed.
okay, very good. I appreciate that. The phases have, I'm keeping up, but it's,
And
I appreciate the
combining
clarification.
these has allowed phase 7 to get done at this point. Otherwise, we would have to go back later date to ask for more money to get phase 7.
Okay, is phase 7 the one on 2023, or is it one of ours?
Phase 8 is on 23. Phase 7 is the section that runs
River Road.
between Lumberman's Monument and M65.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, we adopt resolution 2018-22.
support.
Motion by Mr. Gieske, support by Mr. Palmer. Roll call?
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes,
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Byer.
No, excuse me. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion is passed. Now we're on to other. Number 1 is update policies and procedures for Huron Shores Artisan Hall.
Okay, well, some time ago, we talked about this at one of the board meetings, and I volunteered to help Jolene Sen to bring to the board for their approval some updated versions of all the different forms that the hall would be using. Jolene is here in the audience. If the board does have any questions, like we discussed on Friday, there was a couple things that the board members brought up where my name was in there specifically, so we changed that, and your updated copies are on the board table. I don't know if Jolene wants to step to the podium and give a little bit of an overview, kind of like I did Friday. She got information from a bunch of different sources, some that I provided, some that Erin had found, and some that she had collected herself, and kind of put them all together to come up with the best use for our hall at this time. Obviously, it's a document in working order. You know, you're going to have things that happen and go, oh, maybe we should add this, and of course, that'll be brought back to the board if necessary. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for Jolene or myself regarding the same.
well, the only questions I had, as I stated Friday, were naming you specifically as opposed to the treasurer's office. And the only other thing that I noticed is kind of a typo is under the, this is for the building use application. On the second part of that, under security deposit, if you go down where the part that's underlined, right after that, it says, I have, understand, that all items. It's just a typo or a miswording or something that doesn't change. Other than that, it's fine.
Okay. Oh, I see it, yep.
My only, I think my only question or need of clarification was, and I mentioned it Friday, was wondering if insurance is required for any rental of the hall or just if alcohol is used.
I believe it, oh,
I'm sorry, I just noticed it seemed connected to the alcohol use, and I wasn't sure if it was.
that's correct. It is only if there's alcohol.
It is only if there's alcohol, okay.
So there's no insurance required for a regular rental?
No, we don't do that with the Warrior Pavilion.
So then, is this covered then under the township's insurance policy?
That's where it's been, yes.
It's currently covered by the township policy. The building is. So if there were no individual policies taken out per event, then if something were to go wrong, it would seem to me it would fall under the township's policy. We would probably want to verify that with our agent.
Well, do we know if it's been added to our township policy?
It's
has
there.
been.
Yes, yeah.
So it's covered? I mean,
Yes.
Confirmed the building is on the policy.
There's an umbrella insurance of in excess of $19 million. So Paul Olson is our insurance representative, and he assured me the Huron Shores Artisan Hall is covered under that $19 million of umbrella. He's in the process of coming up with a building value to add to our insurance schedule as far as buildings to be able to put on there, and that'll be ready by the time it comes renewal for fall.
And just a reminder for the board too, we have this document, like I said, and this is temporary till we decide tomorrow at the combined work sessions of what direction the DDA is going to take. Whether these documents are going to change at all or not, or stay the same, or like I said, if they need to be changed or tweaked, we can always do that too moving forward. So once we've established a direction with the DDA, then we can go from there.
So under that premise then, if the DDA is a body separate, they would be carrying insurance on the building?
I guess that would be
Or would
one
they
of the
simply
discussions.
pay whatever the amount is, the portion of the payment that would be under that, the premium that would be for that building? That we would pay our total policy and then the DDA would reimburse us for whatever portion that would be?
I don't think there's actually an extra cost for it, if they're just under our umbrella, but that's,
Right now, it's under the umbrella. When it's added to the schedule, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be an additional. Right now, he assured me until the schedule is officially been updated and we renew, it's covered under the 19 million. That's
And when's the renewal on our insurance?
fall.
It's fall.
Yeah, September, October, or October.
So we can look at that, and then by then we'll have an idea of how the DDA is going to
right,
function, as you
and
mentioned.
then address that.
Okay, very good.
So we're not requiring insurance from renters of Warrior Pavilion. Is that right?
That's correct. Only if there's alcohol.
There's alcohol, they have to take a policy out on their homeowner's insurance.
My memory seems that we did, but I'm not confident enough in that memory to give anyone any assurance here. But it'd be worth looking into tomorrow, I think, to get everyone, because
Yeah, I don't remember any insurance except for alcohol
That's
requirement.
the only thing I remember.
I mean, this policy, when I started, I began with the Warrior Pavilion policies and make sure that at least the liability piece was the same as theirs. In the building application, there is, when they sign it, they are taking responsibility for all damages and liability. obviously, if it's, they put a deposit down, if it's something minor, then that comes out of their deposit. Beyond that, then we do have a signed document from whoever rents it, that they have taken on that liability.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the policies and procedures for the Huron Shores Artisan Hall as presented, effective through the end of 2018.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Byer.
Mr. Reed, just a quick question. So we're doing this vote preemptively in case there is no change tomorrow?
I don't know, I was not part of adding this to the packet.
Oh, sorry. You had mentioned that there might be changes tomorrow, so I was wondering, are we approving it today just to get an approval, or would we be able to again approve tomorrow?
Actually, Aaron was the one that wanted us to come up with something,
Yeah,
but we haven't decided what direction we're going, so this is an interim till we get to where we're going with the DDA.
okay, got it.
Well, and that was the reason for my motion being.
Motion to the end of the year.
Just to the end of 2018, so that after the first of the year, we'll have a better idea of the direction the DDA is going, how things are going to proceed with the hall, and then we can make adjustments after the first of the year as needed.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call?
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes,
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, authorized representative for the Township ECWAG application info.
All right, so this is from an email from Mr. Rick Freeman with Row Engineering, who is applying and getting all of the information together for the ECWAG application. And what he wrote to me last Friday while we were at the work session here at 10:54 a.m. He said, if appropriate, can I be named the authorized representative for the township in gathering the additional information that is and will be requested as we finalize the ECWAG application process? He said, basically all that I need is your response to this email naming me as the representative that he can forward on to the appropriate parties. He says, as always, I will be copying you on all the correspondence responses, requests for additional information that come in and go out. By doing this, it will just expedite the issues that require a signature on certain submittals. So that's why I'm bringing it to the board to be able to approve so that we can have Mr. Freeman as the authorized representative as we finalize the ECWAG application process.
Any comments?
This authorization is just for the application process.
Correct.
Wouldn't continue after that.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I make the motion that we go ahead with authorizing Mr. Freeman as our ECWAG representative.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Gieske,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Next, number 3, consideration of the township to pay for the last 2 RAB meetings of 2018. I received this request late this afternoon. The estimated cost per meeting is $1,250. And I did confirm that it is 2 meetings, the one this week, and then another one a few months from now. That's all that's left for 2018. Any comments?
How much would this cost us for the whole year? 5,000?
Yeah, what did we pay earlier?
I don't have that information.
Yeah.
We've paid for 2 so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
We paid twice,
my-
but each was multiple meetings.
My memory isn't as great as it once was, but it seems to me that the amount for each of those was less than $12.50.
That's what
It
I thought,
was.
but I wasn't sure.
Just an estimation, like I said, this happened shortly before the meeting started.
Okay.
I understand the concern about the per meeting cost, and I agree with questioning it. But on another thing, Mr. Lariche did talk about talking to the Native American organization for assistance, and I applaud him for doing that. But I also heard you say that they were going to revisit this maybe in October or something like that, and perhaps we could get some money for that. Am I right? Perhaps.
Perhaps,
Yeah.
but there may be a max of $500 total for a year. We don't know yet.
Okay.
It's taken 2.5 months for me to get the right information through his staff.
Yeah.
To get that, and I just got it this morning.
Okay.
Email.
Okay. I understand. It's a tentative deal, a work in progress here. So hearing what he said, should we vote on 2 more meetings or 1? Pay for the next one, and by that time, the Native American organization will have told us to go jump in the lake, or yes, we have $500 for you, and we can vote again on the final meeting of this year. I make that motion that we pay for 1 right now and revisit it, the final meeting at a later meeting.
The only reason I brought that up, Jim, I'd like to look into the future for next year, see how much money we gotta have if we're gonna continue broadcasting these meetings.
Right.
Has anybody talked to the vendor? Well, I know you just got the request late today, but has anybody talked to the vendor about maybe doing some kind of a discount or something because the township already pays for our meetings now, or because it is such a important topic? I mean, has it reached out to them in regard to that?
Not specifically about a discount, but through a variety of, I mean, I only have this information because just conversations have happened periodically or whatever, you know, as I bump into JD. But the answer that I had was that the amount of time it takes to set it up and to get it done properly with the moderator, with someone to be able to, not moderator, somebody to be able to handle the audio and visual on his side has just, it's a chunk of effort. I mean, it looks like he's ready to come up and speak at the podium anyway. But just to wrap up my comment was that I think that's one of the reasons why at one point the price changed, because they tried to go cheap initially, and the one gentleman who was left in the unenviable position of trying to do everything was sitting there literally playing the organ with feet going and hands going and trying to do it a decent job. It wasn't quite the quality that they wanted, so they corrected that estimate. That's what I was aware of, so that tries to address some difference in price. But to your point, I guess, no, and we could certainly talk about discount and all that now.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, just because they did it for years without, you know, with being paid such minimal amount before we passed the franchise fee, that I thought maybe they could just throw in 2 meetings.
well, I think part of it, from my background on this, was that we expected other agencies to pony some of the bill. And that has turned out to be not true. Quite honestly, you know, this township is really getting it in a tough spot. You know, we thought we were going to get support in many ways, and we have in some ways from our legislators. However, we have not received support from the Air Force or from other agencies trying to help us communicate it to the folks that are our constituents. And quite honestly, you know, I feel a bit hard-nosed about this point. I feel very badly for our constituents. I feel badly for the people who live here, who are affected by this contamination. And while I'm very happy for some of the legislators who have supported us, I'm very disappointed in the lack of support that any community has to put up with in a situation like this, where we're simply trying to communicate and we want people to be informed, but we also, at the same time, as the government agency, don't want to be looked upon as the person who's communicating, but somehow then obligating themselves or admitting some kind of guilt or there is some sort of responsibility, or, you know, this is the kind of crap, frankly, that we've been dealing with for all these years. And we've been advised about how we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that. I feel badly for Oscoda. So anyway, that's the end of my speech, but thank you.
And I would like the board to understand that my motion, so far unsupported.
No, it was supported by me.
Oh, okay. But I'm not saying we're only paying for one more. I'm just saying at this point in time, in August, let's pay for the next one and see what happens down the line regarding funding.
I
And
agree.
if we get no more funding, if it all falls through,
Yeah, it's fine.
we'll vote again for this final meeting. So thank you for your support.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
I wouldn't mind hearing from JD, who keeps walking in and out of the room right now.
Do you have something to add?
Step up to the microphone first, JD, please.
Oh, yes. This thing?
That's right.
I've never seen one of those before. Just a quick, to mirror what Mr. Cummings said, the first RAB meeting we did on a true shoestring budget. And we showed what we were capable of, which is what we did when we first took over running the station and took over running the township board meetings. And we proved our worth, and they, of course, asked for more. And we gave more and didn't raise the price. And then, of course, they wanted more and more personnel and more equipment. I don't know if you were given this sheet, which lists all the breakdown of the personnel and equipment required just to broadcast that one meeting. But it's quite extensive. And unfortunately, the number is what it is. Eric is the person that goes through and does these numbers for us. He has spent many hours trying to cut those numbers as low as possible, but we're asking 6 people to give up 4 to 5 hours of their night. Plain and simple. The last meeting, as Mr. Cummings said, we cut back to the bare bones to save some money, and the person that was running the meeting is in the booth right now. I was on the phone with him the whole time because I was out of state, trying to help him correct an audio issue that we could not solve. That led to complaints from the RAB members. Well, the meeting didn't sound right. No, it didn't sound right. It could have been a cell phone, could have been any source of interference that we could not feasibly and find out in advance of the meeting that we couldn't solve it. So I spent the entire meeting on the phone. That's all I can say. We are doing our level best to keep the numbers down. I hate that we have to charge. There's an old saying, we hate to charge our friends and neighbors for our services. We've done a survey, though, and our enemies will not do business with us. I leave it at that.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'd like to add that I guess that characterizes who's not supporting us for reimbursing us for our time and trouble. Yep.
Could I possibly just add a clarification, because I did submit the late request today?
You can come to the podium.
Okay. The way it was explained to me when I approached JD 2 months ago for a quote because the tribe asked for a quote. They wanted to know what they were possibly going to pay for. So I received that in early July, submitted it to their staff. There are 2 discounts that JD or EROC has offered to me. If I come to you, I can ask for a discount on the charge, and that's $100. If I go to EROC's board, I can request a $150 discount because it is a community health and safety oriented event. And so I'm willing to do those 2 meetings and requests. I will even do it in writing. So there's $250 off the $1,255 charge. So it's pretty close to $1,000. There's another discount in the sheet that they provided. That's if you get a request for 3 meetings, you give another discount, which is based on the hourly rate that you're going to charge. So there's about another $130 to $105 possible discount if you do 3. I'm not suggesting that. I understand your motion. I would suggest to think about this, and that is go for the 2, but if the tribe contributes, they'll pay that to the township rather than to them. He offered like 5 months ago, he offered a discount for you when you committed to 2 meetings. I don't know how much that discount was, but I would hope that they would offer a similar discount for the approval of 2. So I think the end is the same, but I think it's a lot better way to do it rather than just go 1 now and then later. If we get someone else to contribute, including the Air Force, then you can decide there to rescind and let them pay directly to them as a contractor, or a donation, which is what the tribe may do as a donation, give it to the township. So that's my suggestion, but those 2 discounts I think are still in play.
Right, and I did forget to mention that $150 of each meeting cost is the township's fee now for us to rent the equipment that you're purchasing. So you have the ability to waive that. If not, it's basically you would pay for it and then get the money back anyway. So if you waived it, it'd be a wash. But there's some of the things that we've had to build in now going forward since the franchise fees were instated and all that stuff. We've got other fees now that we must pass on to people that want our services. I did forget that. Thank you for reminding me.
And I just asked that we look at it, if we're gonna go to 4 quarterly meetings rather than the 2 every 2 months we've been doing. So if we keep it down to close to $1,000, that's $4,000 a year. And I suggest you look at the amount of effort, or the amount of benefit the citizens of Oscoda are getting, but it also is beneficial to informing our agencies of what is important to us, because when they talk and they answer our questions, all of the agencies, the Air Force, DEQ, they know it's on the record. They know it's on the video. I think that's a benefit that we can't lose. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments?
I would say that next time we make this decision, whether it's 1 RAB meeting from now or 2 or 3 or whatever, I feel a need for more numbers. We're making the decision, the numbers have changed from the last time we made the decisions, as was referenced earlier. We're making decisions based off figures that are being verbalized here at the podium. I would just prefer to see some stuff reach us before the meetings. It's tough for me to make an informed decision when there's numbers flying around verbally versus when it's broken down. These credits, that's something intriguing to me, interesting, but nothing I found out about more than 30 seconds ago. So if we're going to be making decisions like this, I'd like to have more concrete information and numbers to base those decisions on.
Anybody have anything further?
If I understand what was just said here, there are multiple discounts, 2, something like that, and we qualify for one of them, and you don't have to commit for multiple meetings. You get one for one meeting. If I'm right on that, or close to being right, I want to stay with my motion.
And I'm okay with that support. I'm okay with that.
Okay. I'll just clarify ahead of time here, I will vote no on this motion because I would rather go ahead and do it for 2 meetings, and if money comes in between now and then that will just be a reduction on what we're paying. But I do agree with what was said here by Mr. Hawk and Mr. Lurich. This video company has put in a lot of effort for very little return, and I believe that they should be getting paid appropriately, and if we don't want to pay as much as what's being charged, then it's a matter of reducing the amount of equipment and people that's being utilized here. But so far, I'm very satisfied with their level of work.
If I can add one more thing, I hear you say, let's pay for 2 and be done with it. But I'm wondering if the Native American organization hears that both meetings are already paid for by is that any incentive for them to kick any money in our way? I doubt it.
I had the same consideration, Jim. But more to the point, and to maybe make, at the risk of making too fine a point of it, we're going through a whole lot of discussions in the last few months about expenditures. I'd like to see, in reference to my earlier comment about there having been no other shoulders to bear this particular expense on since the RAB started, that I'd like to see somebody else be given an opportunity to, lend a shoulder to this particular expense. So I think that one is fine, and I don't think it's an insult to the Native American tribes that are offering their support, or to anybody else who might want to help in the future. But I'd like to certainly create that opportunity in this fiscal year.
All right, so there's a motion by Mr. Byer to pay for 1 meeting and revisit later the next meeting. And support from Mr. Cummings. Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
I'm just going to say that because it's an important topic and it needs to be televised, I feel the same way as John does, that not having definite numbers or wondering what the credits are going to be or this or that, I'm really uncomfortable making that decision, but I will vote yes this time.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
No, motion is passed. The next item, which I received in the parking lot before coming to this meeting here, is the Air Force is requesting permission to discharge the GAC plan into our storm sewer system ahead of having a final agreement. I have received no information up to this point regarding the usage of our storm sewer, other than this email I received from Mr. Mars today, which says, can you send us a quick email or written notice to the Air Force so we can go ahead and start discharging on 31 August 2018, acknowledging that we're still in the negotiation process regarding the service fee. I've reached out to the Air Force management here to get a status update of the service fee review and reasonability determination by legal. And it just ends there. So I don't know what his results have been, or if any, regarding him reaching out to Air Force management. So, question is, how does the board want to handle this?
How close are we to an agreement?
I thought we were pretty close. They requested an invoice for the amount to utilize the storm sewer, and as they requested, and I haven't received anything back so far.
Except this email tonight.
Correct.
And the words "to discharge the GAC plant" means put it in operation.
For them to be able to
Put
discharge the effluent from the plant into our storm sewer.
Which means
Same thing, only different.
put
Well,
it
the
in.
plant can operate and they can discharge somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what do you recommend? Do you have a recommendation?
I don't have a recommendation. I want to get your input first. I guess I have a general idea, but I want to know what the board thinks.
What is the reason for this? Is this some kind of end around? Is there a reason that are you suspicious of anything?
I am. This has been quite a roller coaster.
A bone of contention is a good word for it, yeah. Yeah.
We've gotten two sides from the Air Force. We've gotten one side from it that's very friendly and cooperative. We've gotten the other side that's very anti-working with us in any regard whatsoever. We got their legal team saying, we can't do what the township wants, but township, tell us what you want. Well, this is what we want. Well, we still can't do what the township wants, but tell us what you want. Well, Air Force, how about you tell us what you want? Well, we can't do that, so tell us what you want.
I'd say until we have it in writing, then they don't discharge it.
I've gotten better deals from a car dealership than I have from the Air Force.
Why does that surprise you?
I will say that from and I was involved in three teleconferences with the Air Force. And the second one, I believe, we discussed when their legal team was on the phone, and we discussed that we were willing to grant them putting in the manhole, which they were requesting, which gives them access to the storm sewer system. And our only request that we receive an access agreement by this meeting. And I think the lawyers were under the impression that it had to be a signed agreement by this date. And I think we clarified to them that we only needed their proposal for an agreement, and then we could discuss it and sign it or not sign it and work from that point. And then at the next meeting, or teleconference meeting that we had, there were no lawyers on the other end of the line, and the fellow said, well, just send me an invoice for the amount of payment for what you're charging, and call it a service fee as opposed to a storm sewer fee, and we'll be fine. Now, we haven't, as you said, you sent that off, and we haven't, the check's in the mail, I guess, they're saying. But we've said repeatedly that we would not hold up the progress on this project. So even, in my opinion, even though the Air Force is not, and Mr. Weed described it perfectly, the arguments that they've put back and forth, they want our input, and at every RAB meeting or every community meeting, the first statements that the Air Force makes is that we want to work with the community. And then when the community makes a request, well, we can't do that, just as Mr. Weed has described. That's exactly the process that's gone through. So what we've had to do to this point is allow them to do pretty much whatever they wanted to do, because as you can see, the GAC plant is built, and as of 31 August, they want to start running it. And it's supposed to, apparently, going to have a tour on the 30th to show that it's, what's there and it's ready to go. I think everyone in Oscoda Township would like to see this contamination being dealt with and get that plant up and running and filtering the plume that's underneath the ground that we're sitting on here. Yep. So even though we're not getting any sort of cooperation from the Air Force, I would be very hesitant to decline their access to the thing on the 31st of August, because the DEQ, they said that they were upset that the Air Force was not going to meet their August 15th deadline, but they would extend their permit to the 31st of August. So if we were not to give our permission for them to go ahead on August 31st, I don't know where that would put us with the DEQ and the whole project. And it's been a nightmare and a horrible. I mean, we're negotiating with somebody that we have no leverage with whatsoever. And so that's,
The last motion we made was that we would allow it as long as we would allow connection, as long as they got us an agreement by August 22nd for presentation at our board on the 27th. We received a letter from the Air Force stating, from Mr. Termath, Dr. Termath, stating that they would have something to us by the 27th. And we have nothing. So, and I made it very clear during our phone conversation with the Air Force that I'm done playing these circular games with them. They need to get us an agreement that squeezes at least 4 votes out of this board.
I don't even think that's a hard squeeze. And I think for the sake of the audience, we should be clear that there's nothing in the terms that we have been presenting to the Air Force that are contentious. So it's not like we're creating this in some way or another.
No, we just want them to pay for the degradation caused on the system from their usage.
Absolutely. And it will be heavy
And that's
usage.
only fair considering it's a system that we don't need. Sorry if I cut you off.
and also for the access agreement for the property, which we've been working on for months with them.
Correct. And we still don't have the legal description for the agreement we approved, contingent on a legal description for the survey of the pipes being put underground for the inflow.
And the one teleconference, I made the point with the Air Force that I gave permission for the Air Force to come in and put a test well on my property. And they had an access agreement in hand. And so my point to the Air Force when we had our teleconference is, well, if you don't like the access agreement that we've proposed, use your own, the one that I signed. Well, then one of the lawyers said, well, there's a big difference between a resident's property and township property. But the access agreement, which I signed, merely says that they have right to come on my property, and that at the end of, when they're done with their testing, they will remove the piping and everything that they put in the ground. And that's all the township is asking for in the multitude of agreements that we've submitted to them. And so I just don't understand why they can't give us the same access agreement that they have for the residents here in Oscoda to sign, to give to the township to sign. I quite honestly fail to see a major difference there, but that's where we are. So if you think if we turn down the request tonight, if that would speed them up in getting us an agreement between now and Friday, then that'd be fine. I really don't want to hold up the project, and I think they've sort of got us over a barrel. I don't know how you can use leverage on somebody that you don't have leverage over.
Well, I may be coming at it from a wrong angle, but I don't know how much we can wear them missing their deadlines. So they've missed one 12/31 of 2017. They've missed one August 15th of 2018. And now we're days away from the one on the 31st looks, sketchy at best. I don't know how many of those deadlines that have been broken fall on our shoulders. I don't know how realistic it is for us to wear all of those. So I'm not that inclined. And they're the ones, I mean, our community bears the brunt of them blowing the deadlines, but they're the ones in my mind that the DEQ is holding to a deadline. So they've got a deadline to meet. We do in the sense that our community needs this water treated, but they're the ones that DEQ should hold accountable. Whether that would happen on the other side of this, I don't know. But
Yeah,
that's a bit of leverage that I see. But what agreements did, Mr. Weed, did you reference us supposed to have in hand for this meeting? Which one what did that relate to?
That related to the cost of discharging into the storm sewer.
Okay, so trying to keep a list of pending agreements.
We have 3 pending agreements.
Okay.
The discharge into the storm sewer, the property access agreement of where the GAC plant is located
Okay.
and the easement access agreement for the pipes that go from the extraction field to the GAC plant.
Okay, and where does the manhole access agreement fall under that? Is that one of those three? Or is that separate?
Now I'm all
Yeah,
confused
so
on that,
just in
so-
this discussion, I've heard reference to the manhole access agreement is pending, acceptance of the invoice that you sent to them pending legal review, access agreement to the property itself that the GAC unit is on, and the agreement regarding the easements, we're still waiting for the legal descriptions. So all of those things are outstanding with 4 days to go until operation of this unit.
Correct. So, how about we make a motion? I'll make a motion to allow discharge into the storm sewer until October 10th, 2018. If an agreement is approved before this date, then they can continue to discharge afterwards. If the agreement is not received, then discharge may be required to halt.
October, what was that date?
10th, which is 2 days after our first board meeting in October.
I'll support that motion.
My only comment with that is that it has no teeth when you say may be required to halt. I will vote no.
That's why I projected it after the 8th, so that the board can make a determination on that date, how they want to handle it if we don't have an agreement by then.
That's the final deadline,
Be up to this board on October 8th.
final deadline.
Why let them start?
Nothing happens after that.
This isn't a motion, just a suggestion. Just respond to them. You got it tonight walking in here from the parking lot? Is that right? Wow. Just give them the same parking lot time frame. Tell them they can start using the plant on the 31st if we get some of these agreements responded to that they promised, and we will have a special meeting and do this. Today's the 27th. That gives them 4 days. I agree with Bill. We're in a bad position here, but you know, make them an offer that yes, you can get things going on the 31st, but we need these agreements that you have promised to provide. And if you can get them to us, we will promise to have a special meeting and we will take care of this, and you can do your thing on the 31st. Put the ball in their court.
Just to remind everybody, we do have a special meeting tomorrow. We also have a scheduled strategic session on Wednesday that we could post if everybody's planning to come, and we could have a special meeting prior to the strategic session at 2 p.m. on Wednesday.
I agree. I like the idea of a special meeting even before Mr. Schaefer's wise idea or a comment that we will all already be together. Seems doable.
There's a motion on the table, correct?
Yes. All right, so there's a motion by Mr. Weed for October 10th and support by Mr. Palmer. Do roll call.
Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
No.
Ms. McGuire,
No.
Mr. Cummings.
Is it still worded as may be asked to curtail?
Yeah, because we can decide on the 8th.
I'll say no.
Mr. Gieske,
No.
Mr. Nordine, no. Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion has failed. All right, so what is the next motion?
Well, I would make the motion that I just talked about, that inform them as soon as you can that we are in agreement to allow them to discharge the GAC plant on 31 August, provided they provide us with the documents that they have promised before that date. We will have a special meeting, board members, at some degree of inconvenience. This is what will appear and deal with this if we get these documents.
Is there support?
I'll support it.
Motion by Mr. Byers, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Well, wait a minute, I
Yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
question to that motion. So if we don't receive those documents within the next 4 days, does that mean we don't allow
That's what that means.
them to put discharge into this system?
They have not kept their end of the deal. They have not provided us with the agreements. Dr. Termath said he would have one on today, 27th. Go ahead with the GAC plant, but give us the agreement that you promised you would. First.
Well, quite honestly, I don't know that they promised they would have documents to us by this meeting. That was sort of what the understanding was, but there wasn't a firm agreement to that effect. And in reference to Mr. Rodin's, the other time failures, none of those time failures could be laid at the feet of the township. All of those were because of various things from the Air Force. If we decline them use of the storm sewer on the 31st, now that delay is laid at the feet of the township. And I understand, I'm as frustrated with this whole thing as anybody. I hate to see the township being blamed for holding up the project. And I don't know where our standing with the DEQ, where they would come in on this. I know they were not happy with the Air Force when they said they were not going to be ready by the August 15 that they originally had said, but
I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer, I really disagree with the viewpoint. I'm not afraid to say no. That doesn't mean we're penalizing this township. It means we're holding our position. It means we're holding their feet to the fire. We can't be permitted to proceed without the proper legal documents. Just like you can't drive a car with an expired driver's license with the promise and hope of arriving in a month to DMV to get it renewed. It doesn't matter. I want the papers, and they don't get their sewer connection. That's where I stand.
Mr. Weed, you referenced a letter from Dr. Termath that I took to mean that he promised those documents for tonight, or not that said that they'd be here tonight. Is that the case, or is there more to it?
It's exactly how Mr. Palmer had said it, that it wasn't an absolute, they were gonna have it to us then, but it was kind of more of an assurance than it was a promise.
Okay.
and the point was the lawyers kept saying, well, we can't have that agreement signed by the 27th. And our point was, we don't need to have it signed. We just need to have an agreement that we can look at. And we can sign that at a later date, make any changes that we want, which probably wouldn't make any, but at least we have a document in hand. And that was the understanding. And after that request was put out there, Dr. Termath kind of shut the legal team down and says, well, I don't understand why we can't at least get some sort of document to them in time for the August 27 meeting. And obviously that has not happened. So,
And it was referenced earlier too, I don't have the minutes in front of me, but that our last motion was that we would allow operation as long as we had the agreement by this meeting.
yes.
That was, and we don't. So I can do this. I mean, I don't have, I do. I was gonna say I can do this in good conscience. I don't like that this, is affecting the township as it is, but I don't see another alternative. I mean, we're just getting kicked further and further down the road, so.
So can we have a reread of what the motion states?
So I have that township will inform as soon as we can, as soon as possible, that we will allow the Air Force to discharge starting 8/31/18, as long as they get us the documents before that date, the pending documents.
Sounds good to me.
Should, you made it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Byer, support by Ms. McGuire. Roll call?
Mr. Nordine, yes. Mr. Palmer?
No.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Byer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Gasky?
Yes.
Mr. Weed?
No. Motion is passed. I will call Mr. Termath tonight
Send him an email.
on his cell phone, along with an email. Okay, that is our last item. So we now enter into our second public comment. Oh, actually, I think we need to take a step back here. Why don't we go ahead and schedule that special meeting
We already have
now
several.
while we're all here?
Well, we
Which is
already have
better?
a couple of them.
We have 2 this week already.
Yeah,
But we have the Tuesday and Wednesday. I think we need to schedule one on Friday. 30th is the RAB day, so if we did it for late afternoon, the 30th maybe, but I think if we're setting the deadline of they have to have it to us prior to that date of the 31st, we need to take action on the 30th or on the 31st.
I'm okay. I would like late on the 30th, before the RAB meeting, so that hopefully this would be concluded before then.
it can't be late because 4 o'clock is the tour.
So
Okay, so
3:30,
as late as-
3:30?
yeah, if that worked for, I would hate to see it go Friday morning. And I don't know what would come of the RAB meeting if it's not resolved before then. I don't know what would be.
The tour should get interesting then.
So, I'd like Thursday. That way, hopefully everything is taken care of and they can begin operation 8/31.
31st is Saturday?
Friday.
Friday.
Friday, okay.
30th is Thursday.
Could we do it 3:30? Just or prior to the scheduled RAB
Yep.
tour?
Everybody go with that time and date?
That's okay with me.
3:30?
I won't be available. I'll be out of town.
Oh. Got it. So three, but that, we're talking Thursday, right? Before the wrap, all right. Yep, we can make that one.
I mean, we can keep it flexible and called as by the supervisor or 2 board members. We can be responsive to whatever happens. I'm okay with setting it at 3:30, but if we wanted to maintain flexibility, we could.
Yeah, well, we can always cancel it too. At least it's on the books. I mean, for me, that helps, so it's predictable, but,
Sure, it helps give the Air Force something,
yep.
a target.
Time and date good with you?
3:30 is fine.
Yes.
All right, I make a motion, we have a special meeting regarding the Air Force discharges or GAC plant at 15:30 hours or 3:30 PM Eastern Time on the 30th of August.
Support.
Roll call?
Mr. Gasky,
Yes.
Ms. McGuire,
Yes.
Mr. Cummings,
Yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Mr. Nordine, yes, Mr. Palmer,
Yes.
Mr. Weed.
Yes, motion's passed. Okay, now we're into public comment. This one here, a card does not need to be filled out. There is still a 4-minute time limit. Anyone may speak, and when you come up, please introduce yourself. Does anybody wish to speak?
A quick comment. Supervisor mentioned it's going back and forth, this topic you were just discussing and everything, and I would just throw out that I've observed with the Air Force and the DOD that there's a big dog, little dog fight going on. you're talking to the little dogs, the big dogs that are really pushing each branch of the DOD, Air Force, Army, and Navy, is what's really happening. And the budget that they're getting and not asking for, and the OMB is not giving them, is driving the train. So, just an observation. The big thing that out of this discussion that just happened is I haven't heard one discussion of, I've heard a lot of, this wasn't reported, this wasn't submitted, and they promised us this date and that date, and those are all meaningful. They should be doing a better job, I'll grant you that, a much better job meeting their deadlines. However, what's missing from the discussion is who's the affected party and whether or not that GAC unit turns on. And it should be, my understanding that the DEQ said it should be turning on the 30th. So I don't know, maybe they changed their mind and they said the 31st, the permit people did. There's 750,000 gallons per day going down that storm sewer, and the last number we have is 1,000 parts per trillion of PFOS, the stuff that the DEQ has a 12 part per trillion limit to protect our health for eating fish. That's what should be driving the decisions by both this board and the Air Force and the DEQ, not little deadlines of a report or an agreement and so forth. And I would just throw this as an offer. Yes, you may not have the clout or control that you'd like to have on something like this against the Air Force. Totally understand that. But you're not going to get that. Hell's not going to freeze over. What I would suggest is that if every day that they're beyond whatever day, like the 30th, that they don't give you the documents you want, double the sewer access fee. And then when they get you all the reports, you go down to your regular ordinance. And there's your money to pay for the RAV videoing. But that is what gets their attention, is money. Don't do something that's just going to get you, the public, in a bad light when you're trying to do the right thing. Throw it right back at them, but and get a little bit of change in the making. But all of this, and this is the dispute resolution, the DEQ and the Air Force, and I see the Air Force pulling you guys into it. You're aboard. It's getting too personal. It's way too personal. And the problem is it's affecting our constituents in the town more than any of the agencies who are talking or coming up with these decisions. And that's what I'm disappointed in. So I suggested there's a higher road that you can take, and I think it could be something that the Air Force couldn't say no to. On a different topic, on the agreement, Tim, you said you want some other stakeholders paying. Right now, your ordinance only collects the franchise fee from Oscoda residents, I believe. And I would suggest you go to your sister township and ask them to pass an ordinance, because they're on the RAB. They get the benefit of the decisions that are forced upon the Air Force. Have them start collecting the fees from their charter members. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Name's Bernie Shank of Oscoda. I also think about there's got to be some employees that work in this plant. Are they from the federal government, or are they going to be Oscoda DPW employees? Okay, they're probably going to be some people from the Air Force or from the federal government. They probably got a plan. The sheet says, flip the switch today at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 31st. So the guy's going to go by his orders. Flick the switch, on she goes. Who's going to run out there and shut the valve off and say, no, we're not going to let that go through here? Us? That's a good question, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Steffler. I'm down the end of Van Dam Road. And I have a very deep well. When I flush my toilet, I've got pictures of whipped cream floating in my toilet. I mean, and it's been going on 4 years since they've known this, and they got water across the street. You know, they flush the fire hydrant, but I can't hook up to it. I'd like to know why.
Did you have any other comments first before we address it?
Pardon?
Did you have any other comments first before we address that?
No, not really. I just, I come up here to hook everything up so I can shut up for the winter, and I can't do it. It's been 4 stinking years, or going on 4. They're just playing games with you people. And I was trying to buy a marina that there was maybe 40 gallons of gas in the ground. The bill on that was $1,300,000. Exxon begged them to put in bacteria, up there at the oil spill. The feds said no, they steamed it. The only thing it did is broke it up. They let Exxon dump the bacteria at the end, and it was pristine. They have bacteria that'll eat anything, radioactive and everything. Why can't they put pools out here, dump the bacteria in it, and it's gone? You're not going to dump it in the lake then. I've read on that pretty good. And you can, they had bacteria, for anything. Raw crude oil, radioactive stuff, everything. There was a place in Canada, oil well that was capped. There was yellow or pink mold around the well. They found out you put in a cement pond, salt water, put the pink stuff in, and you make crude oil. Why can't they use that stuff to get rid of this junk in the ground? Instead of billions of dollars, and what are they going to do with it? Truck it someplace else and dump it. Right? Or else dump it in the big lake. What do you think? I mean, it's there. All they have to do is get a hold of some of these colleges and find out what to dump in there to eat this stuff. I'd like to show you some pictures when you're done of my toilet. It sounds stupid, but I mean, you say it's flushed and I got whipped cream back in it, floating. And I don't want to bring my grandkids up here, my great-grandkids. Would you? Let them get the cancer?
No.
No. I'm sorry. Yeah, well.
All right, anybody else wish to speak? All right, then we're on to board comment. I'll go ahead and start off regarding this thing with the comments made by Arnie LaRich about it being personal. It has been brought up several times during the negotiations that how this is for the people. This is about the people. I believe, I'm under the understanding this board understands that very well.
Very well.
Apparently, though, the Air Force doesn't, because they've been highly resistant in making things work. We only had minor changes that the board requested on the last agreement they submitted to us, and they refused to do anything different. And I think it was a good point that you made. It's like driving a car. You don't go on the road without a license. And the Air Force understands about these agreements. And they've been hard-nosed to press us that we have things, laws and stipulations that were put on us years ago that we must follow. But they've got to follow some things too. This isn't about just the Air Force or the township as being obstinate in any way. We're just asking for what's reasonable. And the Air Force needs to come to terms with that. As far as the, you live on Van Dam Road?
Yes, the very end.
Okay. So the water mains were just installed.
Yes.
They just went through the bacteria testing and all of that was good. There's a final inspection that's going to be done on September 12th. Once that's done, any one of those residents can hook into that system.
After the 12th?
Correct.
Thank you.
As far as payment for that, at this point, the resident would be responsible for paying for it. However, or the property owner is. However, we expect to receive money from the state that will pay for those connections. I don't know if those funds can be used to reimburse the property owner if they've gone ahead and installed or hooked up themselves. That's the response I'm still waiting from their legal team to get back with me about. Otherwise, it's a matter, if you don't want to pay for it, it's a matter of waiting until the state finalizes these funds. Then the township will have a system in place for those residents to be able to hook up with minimal to no cost.
And they contaminated my water, right? So I'm gonna have to pay you people to have water. Why can't I deduct that from my federal income tax?
You'll have to talk with your congressman about that.
No, serious.
I'm serious. You'll have to talk with them. We don't have jurisdiction over that.
I talked to my bookkeeper and she said, I don't see why not. It's their fault. They should have to pay, your water bill.
I don't disagree with you. All right, any other board comments?
Yes. I want to comment that it is unfortunate, but also amazing timing that you received this text message on the way to this meeting from Mr. Mars.
I want to clarify here, I believe the email came in at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, but I hadn't seen my emails until I got into the parking lot.
And email as it is, not text message. Well, so our last RAB meeting was on June 6th. And I wrote an email to Mr. Mars on June 7th. I copied also the moderator, Tim Saltonfuss, and the DEQ, and some folks here at Township Hall. And what I pointed out was that night's meeting, the format had changed without notice or acknowledgement to those of the RAB. At prior meetings, every RAB member was given an opportunity to make closing comments, but on that particular meeting, we weren't. No one was told in advance. There was no discussion, and there was no vote. There was no mention of why this was changing, just that it was, and that this approach was being enforced by their moderator, Tim Saltonfuss. So I wrote this email, and I got a response back from Mr. Mars on June 25th, which was, the majority of which was not responsive to anything I said. I had specifically 2 items that I wanted to address that had come up within that day of the RAB meeting. They were important to the RAB meeting, and the purpose of the RAB meeting is, of course, to communicate and disseminate information to the community. However, I did not get to give that information, and that information and the topics were not covered by anybody on the agenda. I want to point that out. So, Mr. Mars replied back and did not address my concerns. So I replied back on June 27th, and I basically said to him that his response was not responsive, and I asked him to put this on the agenda for the next RAB meeting. I look forward to finding out whether it is, because I gave him 2 months' notice. So I will look forward to that. Incidentally, Mr. Lariche was copied on that email. And we talked about it over the phone before I sent that reply. So to your point, and to everyone's point, I think, here on this board, the Air Force is definitely playing a game. I'm sick and tired of it. I have no more patience for it, and I look forward to this Thursday's RAB meeting.
Another board comment? All right, then I need a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you for coming out.